Two of California's leading industries have plenty at stake as immigration reform legislation works its way through Congress.
The only way America loses is to do nothing.
Federal investigators call for stronger oversight of Chevron in light of last year's massive fire at the company's Richmond refinery. Governor Jerry Brown weighs the political cost of overhauling California's Environmental Quality Act to streamline development. And John Myers reports on the governor's hopes of partnering with China in the fight against climate change.
It is not just commerce that is moving through China to the west. It is also air pollution, greenhouse gases. China's problems are the world's problems.
Coming up next. Good evening. I'm Joshua Johnson. Welcome to This Week in Northern California. The manhunt is over for a suspect accused of the attack on the Boston Marathon. Police have arrested Jahar Zarnayev in a Boston suburb. Meanwhile, a boy from Contra Costa County is recovering after being injured in the bombing. The family of 11-year-old Aaron Hearn of Martinez says he could be released from the hospital soon. Closer to home, there's plenty to discuss in the week's news. Joining us tonight are Paul Rogers, environment writer for the San Jose Mercury News; Jackson Vanderbecken, reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle; and Emil Guillermo, a blogger for the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Welcome, everyone. Immigration reform in Congress is getting plenty of attention these days on the farms of the Central Valley and the offices of Silicon Valley. Both agriculture and technology rely heavily on immigrant workforces. This week, some of the tech sector's biggest names launched a reform campaign called Forward US. Supporters include the CEOs of Facebook, LinkedIn, Dropbox, Yahoo, Zynga, and others. Emil Guillermo, let's start with the pathway to citizenship. That's kind of a key part of this compromise bill.
Oh, yeah. And before we get to that, you just mentioned the two biggest winners. Ag workers, 400,000 in California who could benefit from this, and also the high-tech workers. H-1B visas have doubled to about 110,000, 120,000 and can go up to as high as 180,000. Facebook, the high-tech folks got exactly what they wanted, and all because of lobbying.
H-1B visas, just to clarify, are the visas that allow highly skilled foreign workers to remain in the U.S. rather than presumably taking their skills back home.
Right, and they got exactly what they wanted from the lobbying because, it was reported how Zuckerberg started this 501c3. There was some fear that there might be some kind of contingencies on maybe hiring Americans who are STEM workers, the science and technology workers, or maybe even having equal pay for the workers that they bring from abroad. But none of that was there. They got everything they wanted, and so winners here in California. But this is a very political compromise. This whole thing can blow up, and we saw that this morning when Senator Grassley at the Judiciary Committee of the Senate mentioned Boston, linked Boston to immigration reform, which could derail this, could provide cover for people who do not want to see this thing go through. And just to show you that there is political will, John McCain came out with a statement later on in the afternoon and said, this is a good thing that Boston happened because we're going to have secure borders. Secure borders is the key to this compromise, and just look at the name of the bill: border security, economic opportunity, and immigration modernization. The first two are the priorities. The last one, immigration, really serve the first two.
Yeah, it sounds like the conversation today, especially in light of what happened in Boston and the president spoke not long ago, the part of the conversation in Congress had to do with some of those more legacy issues, the pathway to citizenship, securing the borders. It sounds like some of the issues that are biggest for us in the Bay Area and California, agriculture and high tech, are the ones that are a little more off the radar for Congress, and it's a good thing too because they've got bigger things to worry about.
Well, the pathway is the first step because you got to get this compromise to get the right over to the middle, and that was based on trying to make this thing tough, make it based on secure borders. The people on the left are moving to the middle because the best thing that happened to the left is the DREAM Act gets passed, and that means you get a quicker pathway to citizenship, 5 years, and you get older dreamers. These are dreamers, of course, are people who came in when they're young, 16 and under. Now the people that previously capped at 30, now people 30 and up get to be part of this fast track. And that's the key. Fast track is 5 years. Now, the citizenship pathway for everyone else could be up to 15 years. And the way it works, and this is the key thing, if you were here before January 1st, 2012, then you can apply and see if you've passed all the, background checks are okay for people who are here illegally, not for people who want to do illegal things with guns. Right. But what they want to do is they want to make sure that you didn't vote, that you've paid all your taxes, you pay a small fine, and then you have a 6-year window that means that you come out of the shadows. Then it extends. After the 6 years, you can, if everything is good, you can go to a 4-year window. And then after that 10 years, it's all contingent on what they call security triggers. There's got to be a 90% apprehension rate or security rate at the border. And if it works, then you get a 3-year pathway to citizenship. If it doesn't work, they start a new bureaucracy.
So what's the political handicapping on all this? I mean, to me, the fascinating thing is that when you look at the demographics of the country and the way they're changing, in the 1980 presidential election, 90% of the people who voted for president were white. This time around, it was 72%. It's falling by 1 or 2% every year. The fastest growing segments of the country are not voting Republican. How much of that electoral panic, frankly, is driving the Republicans, particularly in the Senate, towards this? And will it pass in the House?
Well, it's driving it totally. And the only thing that's keeping them in the compromise is the fact that this is a punitive thing. This is a 15-year plan, if at the longest. And if you look at 1986,
but they killed early ones. When Bush tried this, they killed it before.
Well,
so what's different now?
1986, when they had reform, it was 19 months of temporary work and then 5 years to pathway to citizenship. This is 15. This is punitive. The main point they want to make is this is not amnesty. And as long as they say that this is not amnesty and there are secure borders coming out of this package, this thing has a chance to fly. But if someone wants political cover and wants to use Boston and wants to use, oh, what about these immigrants, then this thing can end. Now, interesting thing, we mentioned forward.us and the high-tech proposal. This is really a new generation's immigration plan. It's not your father's or your grandmother, my father's immigration plan or my mother's immigration plan. This is really all about the economic certainty of bringing in people. And once they get through all these little steps, it becomes a merit system. It's almost like the USA becomes Harvard USA, and it's like applying to college. And if you have the goods, the Statue of Liberty is out there, and she's not shining a light on this pathway and saying, give me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, unless you can throw touchdown passes, I guess. But this is about show me, she's got her arms folded and she's saying, show me what you got. And this kind of meritocracy is a far cry from the way immigration used to be. And I'm talking about Asian Americans.
That's what the public supports.
Well, Asian Americans, for example, are very vocal about what's going on in this bill because it cuts out the brother-sister preference. It cuts out older children, married children over 30. It cuts out everything that brought together families, everything that brought together family unification. And that used to be the core value of immigration policy.
I know there are some members of Congress, including Congressman, I believe, Gutierrez from Illinois, who has been very vocal about that. Sounds like Silicon Valley is happy about that, but we'll see how that shakes out as we move on. We'll see how that shakes out in the months to come. It will be interesting to see how that tension between the need for those high-skilled workers and just welcoming families in the country, be interesting to see how that plays out. At this hour, East Bay residents are meeting in Richmond to discuss last year's fire at Chevron's Richmond refinery. The blast sent 15,000 people to local hospitals. A preliminary report from the U.S. Chemical Safety Board accuses Chevron of neglect, ignoring necessary maintenance, and patching up major problems for more than a decade. Jackson Vanderbecken, what exactly does the board want Chevron to do?
What do they not want them to do? What do they want them to do? Well, Chevron has a huge job ahead of themselves in the future, and as does the whole oil refining industry in California, based on the direction that the Chemical Safety Board, which investigated this massive fire last August, they basically told everyone that they all have to start new when it comes to refinery inspections, safety, oversight. They call this what they call a step increase, a massive increase. And we're talking about California has very little oversight over its oil refineries. They have 7 inspectors for 15 refineries and thousands of other highly hazardous operations in the state. And they just simply have spent very little time, an average of about 150 total hours on Chevron in 6 years. So it's very little time that they spent. One inspection, they did a paper review. So there's all sorts of things. It's not just Chevron, it's the
What does
state.
a paper review mean?
They didn't visit the refinery. In one inspection that was done after a refinery disaster in another state, California did what they call a paper review of the refineries in California to make sure that they weren't at risk. But that counted as what is considered an intensive inspection of a refinery. It took 50 man-hours, less than a week, more than, roughly a week. And that was one of the 3 inspections that California did of the Chevron refinery. It was done by paper.
So to put it simply, I mean, this sounds kind of amazing. I mean, you can't renew your registration in California without somebody like watching your car roll around on those little tumblers and make sure it's not emitting too much. And Chevron just sends in a stack of paper, and that's good enough. So to be clear, it sounds like what the U.S. Chemical Safety Board is asking for is for actual human interactive inspections of these facilities.
There's been some of that, but it's kind of this case where there's this what they call a patchwork of agencies, and with varying responsibilities and levels of staffing. The AQMD has 75 people to look at the Air Quality Management District. They enforce the air rules. They have 75 people to do just the 7 counties or whatever that are in the agency, whereas there's 7 inspectors for 15 refineries and thousands of other facilities in Cal OSHA, which does the worker safety. So there's different levels of staffing and there's different levels of focus, and they somewhat conflict. There's very little coordination. And the Chemical Safety Board basically said, you guys got to start from scratch here. And they also said that California should serve as a model for refinery safety and oversight, which is weak across the whole United States. And California turned out to be among the weakest. But nonetheless, they all use the federal rules, and state rules can be stronger.
And the one thing, locally, Contra Costa does have its own county ordinance, which is stronger than a lot of the weaker rules that you're talking about. I guess for folks who don't know, why did it blow up, and how much could Chevron be on the hook for?
Well, why did it blow up? According to the Chemical Safety Board, this refinery, over a decade, the refinery operators should have known that higher sulfur in the oil, a growing trend across the refinery industry as crude from Alaska, which is lower in sulfur, is diminishing. Other, what they call opportunity crude from other parts of the world, higher in sulfur, is coming to these plants. And what happens is that sulfur interacts with the iron and steel and the pipes and forms areas where the pipe literally wears away, and it develops scale and all sorts of problems. So what happened here was that this pipe had corroded to less than a dime's thickness, and 90% of its original thickness was gone.
And nobody was inspecting it.
Well, they hadn't checked on that pipe since 2002. And one of the recent revelations in this report was that Chevron got basically a last-minute wake-up call in March of 2012. They did an audit to say that they were even adhering to their own policies, and it turned out that this refinery had not been checking in the right locations for corrosion and had not been doing the kind of changes needed to replace potentially corroded pipes.
So how much is this going to cost them?
Well, we know one thing right now. The Cal OSHA, the only people who have actually gone forward with fines, wants nearly $1 million in fines. But that'll probably be a drop in the bucket based on the civil liability, given that some 10,000 or so folks who live near and around the refinery are going to be seeking compensation.
Before we move on, Chevron has been very active in terms of being out in the community in Richmond since this happened. They've been trying to be public, trying to kind of save face, donating to local organizations, getting involved with charities and so forth. How is that public relations battle going between the residents of Richmond and those neighborhoods, that whole area that's been dealing with these refineries for a long time, and Chevron? How is that going, briefly?
Well, Chevron's wide-scale public relations campaign, both before and after, I mean, the people in Richmond know that Chevron's kind of like this place where everybody loves to hate it. And Chevron knows that, and I think that they have in the past tried to soften that. To what effect, it's unclear, because, we only hear about people who are very unhappy.
But Jackson, have they devalued the people of that neighborhood? I mean, we know about environmental racism. Are we seeing that at play?
Well, I mean, I think the consensus from Chevron was there since You know, they've been there 102 years.
They were there first.
They were there
Right.
first. People moved there. Now, nobody thinks that that moving there should cost them their life. But on the other hand, you know, it's baked into property values, and of course they do provide a lot of money towards the city of Richmond. So they look at it from different perspective, depends on where you are.
Well, this is at the stage of the draft interim report. The Chemical Safety Board has a long way to go from here, and then we'll see how Chevron responds to the report once it actually does come out. Governor Jerry Brown is making overtures about reforming a landmark environmental law that is one of the most radioactive topics in state politics. The California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, requires developers to conduct environmental impact studies before they break ground. Supporters credit the law for easing urban sprawl. Critics view CEQA as a legal bludgeon, spawning frivolous lawsuits that can beat valuable projects to death. Paul Rogers, this is something that even some Democrats in the governor's own party have made very clear they don't want touched. They want to leave CEQA the way it is. Why is the governor pursuing this now?
Well, CEQA is one of those landmark environmental laws in California. It was signed in 1970 by Governor Reagan. And if you think about the way that California was in terms of development in the 50s and 60s, you know, we would build Daly City over Hill and Dale wherever developers wanted. We would fill in the bay. We had plans to build a 6-lane freeway over Pacifica and down the San Mateo coast. And the public had very little input. And what CEQA actually does, it was modeled on NEPA, a federal law that President Nixon signed, National Environmental Policy Act. And these laws say that when you do a big project, particularly the California law, if you're a local or state government or a developer, you have to have public meetings. You have to tell people how much smog it's going to put in the air, how many more cars, how much noise, and you have to mitigate or offset that damage. So you have to find ways to not kill the whole project, but to tweak the project to make it more environmentally sound. Developers, as you point out, say that it adds too much cost to projects, and it's a reason they say that California is unfriendly to business. Now, this latest reform movement, it's been going on since Governor Schwarzenegger was there. But last fall, a big Silicon Valley business group came in and basically said, this is our priority. The Silicon Valley Leadership Group is a name. And they're working with the Chamber of Commerce and other groups like that. They wanted to make some sweeping changes. At that time, 33 Democrat senators and assembly people in the legislature said, no, you don't change a law this important at the end of the session. So the plan was they were going to do it slowly at the beginning of this session. The business interests hitched all of their wagon to one guy, basically, Michael Rubio, a senator from Bakersfield, who was going to write the bill. He was the chairman of the Senate Environment Committee. And the day that the bill was due,
speaking of Chevron,
he announced he was going to quit to become a lobbyist for Chevron,
right,
which left everybody who supported the reform with egg all over their face that they still haven't recovered from. And the new chairman, Jerry Hill, a state senator from the San Mateo area, has a 100% rating from the League of Conservation Voters. He wants to make CEQA even tougher. So what Jerry Brown said this week in China was, he doesn't think there are going to be big reforms on there this year, and that he said, quote, the appetite for CEQA reform is bigger outside the state capitol than it is inside. And Jerry Brown is going to be up for re-election next year. The two biggest groups that don't want CEQA touched are labor unions, which actually use it sometimes to shake down projects by saying, unless you put union labor on these projects, we're going to sue you on a CEQA thing, and environmentalists who don't want it changed at all. So why would the Democratic members go against their two biggest constituents?
What's the record of this act in the sense of how is it really mitigated things, or do you think is it just what they consider a blackmail operation?
Well, supporters of CEQA will say most of the projects, the vast majority, are built anyway. They have some minor changes. A developer's required to put in an extra turn lane, and he has to pay for it, not taxpayers, that kind of thing. It makes the developers bear the cost of the impacts to society. Critics say, rightly so sometimes, that there are really bad abuses. There's a famous case in San Jose where one guy had a gas station across the street from another guy. He wanted to put in 3 or 4 more pumps, and the other guy sued him, saying you haven't done the proper environmental study. It's cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just because he wanted to hurt the other guy's business. So, the question is, can anybody write legislation that allows the public to participate, that keeps the environmental laws strong and keeps the air getting cleaner and the water getting cleaner, and does something about traffic on new projects, but at the same time doesn't allow these kind of abuses. And right now, Senator Steinberg, the Senate leader, is trying to do that. I think in the end what we're going to end up with is a very small, watered-down bill that might make it a little easier to build infill development.
Is there one thing that it's done that people can point to and say, look, there's the legacy of CEQA?
Very briefly, because we got to move forward.
Almost any big project, wherever the public gets a role, that's CEQA.
Well, CEQA is just one of the major environmental policy challenges Governor Brown is wrangling these days. During his trade mission to China, he also worked to get that country on board with fighting climate change. No easy task, since China reportedly emits more carbon than any other nation. The U.S. is a close second. Our report tonight comes from John Myers, political editor for KXTV News 10.
Jerry Brown is a governor who no longer seems to yearn for a national stage, but his 9-day visit to China made it clear Brown has been keeping an eye on the bigger picture.
We're in one world, we've got one big problem, and we all have to work on it.
That problem, he said, is damage to the environment, both long-term and immediate. Nowhere is it more pressing than in China. In city after city, California's trade delegation saw firsthand an air pollution problem that invokes images of Los Angeles in the 1960s and 70s. Here, it seems, wearing a mask outdoors is almost becoming a fashion statement. And global wind patterns make this kind of pollution not just a threat to the Chinese.
When you think about it, the air pollution in China, where does it go? In California, we feel the impact of it eventually, right? So I think there are opportunities for both sides to collaborate.
In meetings with Chinese officials, the governor and his top advisors found a lot of interest in what works in California, from tailpipe exhaust laws to the powers given to local air quality districts.
They know our programs very well. They've obviously been studying the various options they have to deal with their pollution problems here.
That may help explain the agreements on this visit that the Brown administration signed with Chinese officials. 4 agreements in all, with environmental cooperation, the focus of an event at Beijing's Tsinghua University.
China and the U.S. and the largest economic bodies, the largest energy consumers, the largest coal consumers, the largest oil consumers, and the largest CO2 emitters. So we have a lot of opportunities in the future.
China's challenges aren't a lack of political energy as much as they are the source of its physical energy. Coal. Railroad cars full of coal, like these in the city of Nanjing in eastern China, are needed every day to fuel the power plants all over the country. An international study finds China burns more coal than the rest of the world combined. A major reason the country is the largest source of greenhouse gases from carbon. Which gets us back to Jerry Brown and California's ambitious efforts to fight climate change, efforts that may be all for nothing without change in China.
No one group can solve the problem. Not the United States, not California, not Japan, not China. We all have to do it.
The governor and his advisors spent months negotiating the details of the economic and environmental agreements he signed on this trade mission. International groups praised the pacts for going beyond just standard language. The agreement signed with Guangdong in particular gives some environmental groups an ongoing role to monitor climate change progress and help keep Chinese efforts pointed in the right direction.
The whole opportunity here is cooperation. It's being able to exchange information, exchange investment, exchange opportunities that otherwise wouldn't exist.
The governor's trade mission also found opportunity for the issue of climate change to boost its other big objective, help for California's economy. In the last 7 years, China has become a powerhouse in the business of climate-friendly technology. But for all its innovation, the country has a huge demand for even more.
That's the question that we get asked very often is, tell us about what are people doing in the U.S.? What are the technologies? Can you help bring some of those to China?
And that, say California entrepreneurs, is where this trade mission presents enormous opportunity.
Every ton of garbage creates a ton of greenhouse gas going up into the atmosphere. We can take that and turn it to clean energy.
Businessman Mike Hart from Davis came on this trade mission in search of investors. His company, Sierra Energy, turns solid waste into gas and ultimately electricity. He says the company can turn a ton of garbage into 1,600 kilowatts of power.
Our expectation is we will have at least one significant Chinese partner as the result of this trip. And that could result in several $100 million worth of new construction projects.
It's good.
California also stands to benefit from Chinese technical expertise. The country is a leading source of electric car batteries.
Watch out, I'm going to start it.
Governor Brown, who toured one Chinese battery and electric car company in Shenzhen, says California's goal of 1 million electric cars by 2025 won't happen without China. In an interview at the end of the trade mission, Brown said China shows a lot more promise for working with California than does Washington.
Well, I find them a lot more advanced than our United States Congress. I mean, they're just mired in mythology and primitive thinking when it comes to climate change. With that kind of power, so dedicated against renewable energy, there can be virtually no progress.
And progress is what Brown says he saw all over China since his first trip there in 1986. Critics at home say the governor ignored talking about many of China's problems. Brown counters by saying he was simply there to begin a dialogue. And if California can have that dialogue, it would seem everyone might win.
That was John Myers reporting for KQED and KXTV News 10. So ends our broadcast tonight. Thanks to our guests, Emil Guillermo, Jackson Vanderbecken, and Paul Rogers. This weekend, we celebrate Earth Day. If you want a list of local events, you can go to our website, kqed.org/thisweek. Perhaps as an antidote to the crazy news of this week, we leave you tonight with views of the peaceful groves of a California redwood forest. Until we meet again, I'm Joshua Johnson. Thank you for watching. Good night.